radar again, so obviously everybody's aware of the fact that last fall, recreational marijuana passed by, was it 67% here in Waterford?
64.
64%.
Pretty darn high, yeah.
64%, so, and they're just, OCATS meetings, so County Association of Township Supervisors, we talk just about every month. Some have opted in, some have opted out. One of the things that came up recently is if the municipality, if you don't do anything, is it December 5th is a magic date? December 6th.
You have to report.
The state takes over and makes the decisions for you after that. Recently it was brought up that if you opt out, and the cannabis people have been pushing this, they did it in Pontiac, and put it on, they get 5% of the registered voter signatures. If you get a 64% cast vote, I don't think it'll be hard to get 5% of the registered.
Did Pontiac opt out though?
They opted
Yeah,
out.
they did opt out, yeah.
And
Are we
they-
talking about, we're talking about the opted out of the recreational? You're sure they opted out?
You can't opt out of recreation, it's gotta be medical.
They opted out of the medical, I believe it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, they opted out of the medical.
I just saw it on.
The medical, you either opt in or you do nothing. You don't have to opt out. So
Okay,
the previous medical, the most recent medical, if you do nothing, you have to enact an ordinance for any of this to be,
Dispensaries.
yeah, for any of it to be applicable in your municipality. If you don't enact an ordinance with regard to that medical marijuana statute, the most recent one, they're dead in the water. You have to either opt in or you're automatically out. The newest recreational one, you have to opt out or you're open for business. That's
If you
how.
opt in.
You as a municipality have to opt out. If you don't opt out,
You're obligated.
you're open for business.
Okay, so the fact that it was voted and approved, it's open for business unless you opt out then.
Exactly.
Okay.
So,
So Pontiac must have opted out then.
I don't know, that's why I'm asking, are you sure they opted
Because-
out? Because I'm not so sure that we're talking about with regard to the ordinance that they enacted, because they have an ordinance that, and I haven't read it, but my understanding is provides for 20 dispensaries, correct?
Dispensaries, yes.
Okay.
Right.
And unlimited grow operations, I believe.
Right, so that was an ordinance that they enacted that was voted upon and passed.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm not so sure that they ever really opted out of the recreational. So my question is, and I've talked to one of the senators today, and he's not so sure that this says what some people think it says. They're gonna do some research for me. The first line of this particular part of the act says, except as prohibited in section 4, and section 4 deals with a lot of different things. A municipality may completely prohibit or limit the number of marijuana establishments within its boundaries, period. That's the first sentence. Then it goes on to discuss this 5% that you're talking about. So I'm not so sure that one is completely related to the other. It's my understanding as I read this that if you opt out, then that's exactly what it is, you're out. I'm not so sure that what it goes on to explain the 5% and the ballot issue and everything else. I'm not so sure that once you opt out, that's an option. They're checking for me, they're gonna do some research for me. And I'll be happy to let you guys know as soon as I know exactly what it is that this means.
Scott, who's doing the research for you? You say a senator?
Yep.
Have we talked to Gary Dovry? I mean, we get an opinion from him on this?
Well, I wanna get a legislative opinion, from the people that
Okay.
enacted the law. I mean, they can tell us direct from Lansing exactly
Okay.
what they believed that
When
this
do you think
means.
you'll get an answer, do you know?
Hopefully sometime this week.
I know Carl and John have met with the city of Pontiac regarding the permitting process with the sheriff department and how the application process occurs. And they've mapped out areas in the community where these centers can be, specific roads, specific locations.
Right.
And then they have, one of their ballots was, I think, was unlimited grow operations. So basically, if it's a building that meets the code, they can do it there. But the actual sale and distribution centers are limited to a specific number. I think 20 does sound about right.
You said
But I don't think,
36.
I don't believe they opted out as it was portrayed. I think they've opted in because they were working on an ordinance last time I was at the building official's office. They're working on an ordinance to get things going, but it was kind of a very, it was going on a slow road.
Okay, but
Let's keep it simple.
like you said, opting in, Scott, so you don't have to opt in, you're in automatically, but the bottom line is you do have some control. But the way it was explained at the OCATS meetings, if you opt out, cannabis is pushing in municipalities to get 5% and put it on the ballot, and if it's voted in, then the municipality loses control.
Correct.
They don't have any.
Well, that's a whole nother, and that's a whole nother, because the ordinance, if that's the case, and if they can, if 5% in a petition can override.
Well, it has to be voted on, then it has to go on the ballot and be voted on.
Right, but what exactly? They're subject to the rules of, you know, the language would have to be approved, the number, all, I'm not so sure that even if you opt out and it says, it is what you think it says, and they do submit this petition and it does go on the ballot, I'm not so sure that you lose, as a legislative body, still lose complete control. I think there's still the option to craft the ordinance with regard to the number of establishments and the requirement of particular areas and zoning and those kind of things. So that's what I'm trying to get.
But if they get specific saying that we want 20 dispensaries in, and they vote yes to that.
That's my point. I don't know the answer to that question. That's what I'm trying to get
Okay.
the answers to right now, and I'm not so sure anybody does. That's why I'm trying to get them directly from the people that.
Every time you talk about stuff, it changes, you know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah,
And when
depending
they-
on who you listen to too.
When they put
And
the
this-
recreational on the ballot, there was nothing in place, just like there was nothing when they put the medical in the ballot. Then they approved it, then they started, you know, building up the rules and regulations, and it's pretty much the same with the recreational marijuana. Like I said again, I don't want to put us in a position where we lose control.
I don't either.
And trying to find out, you know, you just try and you talk to different people, but every time you talk to somebody, oh, by the way, oh, by the way, oh, by the way, and it just, there's too
Yeah,
many loose ends.
I'm in agreement. I think you gotta continue to be in a position where you can control what's gonna go on. If you can opt out and still have control, I think that's the way to go. If not, and this is something different than what I think it is, then we'll have to figure out what's the best way to keep control and what's the best way to regulate what it is you guys wanna do here.
Right. And like I said, then if it does go into effect, then it's gonna be limited areas, and like we've talked before, we were talking about the medical, certain distances from government, schools, churches, residential, you know, it's gotta be a distance away. Waterford pretty much has residential everywhere. I mean, you know, there's very few areas in the township that there isn't residential, so that itself is gonna limit it, you know, considerably, so.
What's your guys' views on this? I mean, you guys want to?
I think it's gonna cause a lot of issues for our police department, and since we have the chief here, maybe he can elaborate on some of those issues that it might cause, or?
Back in 17, I provided some of my opinions as it relates to this whole thing, and they haven't changed from medical to now that it's recreational. Quite honestly, I think most of the people that were on board with the medical marijuana laws were only, coattail people to the few that are really staunch medical advocates. I don't take any stance in terms of medical, whether or not it provides relief, or whether or not it prevents, or I don't have any medical background. I don't have any illnesses that marijuana addresses. So I don't take any position in terms of that. My opinion in terms of that is that really being the case, where is the medical establishment? Why aren't they on board? Why isn't there research? Why don't you go to the doctor, get a prescription, and go to the pharmacy and get your prescription filled? Instead, we're relying on people that have no medical background and come from all different backgrounds to counsel cancer patients on the use of marijuana. I don't understand that.
Well, it's like the Wild West.
Yeah.
It's just so many loopholes. The question you were asking Scott is the law enforcement thing. I haven't seen those statistics where people, I know down in Detroit, they're breaking in a few of them here and there, but, you know, I don't think that's a really concern. That is a concern, but not a real important one to me right now. I understand we don't wanna overburden this department, but I don't think they're breaking into liquor stores or banks or stuff like that. You understand what I'm saying?
Well, there's a concern in terms of, there's more regulation even still that goes on with this. We are gonna be tasked with enforcing that, as it pertains to establishments being broken. You see it on the news now, places being broken into. These people can't put this money in the bank, it's still against federal law to sell marijuana. So they keep more money, they hold more money, they keep more money in their houses. We got people now, we've had B&E crews that have been followed to people's houses because they're the kind of business owners that you're talking about. Car wash, party store, whatever, cash businesses where they follow these people home and watch them for a period of time and break in. So, you know, will it create more crime? Yeah, I think it will.
Well, I agree with you. I think it will. It's not gonna lessen crime. There's no doubt about it. It's gonna definitely bring more crime. And the question that I would have is, okay, say we allow Joe Blow to do a grower operation, a dispensary and everything. What regulations can we make of it? I mean, can we have him have 24/7 armed guard service there? There's a lot of
don't think so.
unanswered questions.
What,
You know, as a municipality, can we?
I'll go back to the question I've asked from the very beginning. What's the benefit to the township?
About 30,000 a year.
How
I mean,
much?
it's peanuts.
Yeah, it's nothing.
You know, I know that. I know
And
peanuts.
the cost of the additional enforcement and the additional workload
But it's-
far outweighs
We've
whatever.
had this conversation before, Scott, but the problem is, and I agree with Gary, we do not wanna lose control if we.
I agree with
We
that.
just
There
don't know
are
what we
some
can do and we can't do,
Other
so.
benefits possibly, according to Orient Township, where the growers have come in, where they've allowed them to, and have helped facilitate infrastructure improvements for their township.
Orient Township's a little different. It's
It
not-
is,
it's-
absolutely.
It's
I
not a
agree.
primarily developed community like
I
here.
agree, I totally agree.
If you look at some statistics out of Colorado, I've done some reading
Yes.
myself,
Mhm.
and you're gonna see an increase in crime, it's already proven.
I agree.
You're gonna see an increase in juvenile ODs because of the candies and all the stuff that are associated with marijuana that they don't talk about on the TV.
It's 10
candy
times
bars.
more stronger
It's-
than
yeah.
when it used to be back in the 60s.
But there's no
There's gonna be an
regulation.
increase in structural fires based on people doing their own electrical work, that type of stuff, using a higher energy system, and car accidents went through the roof.
There's an increase in
Car
demonstrations.
accidents.
There's an increase in the black market thrives, there's an increase in minority arrests, there's an increase in emergency room visits. There's all kinds of stuff to substantiate.
There's really no
There's
benefits, but the
none.
voters voted this screwy law, they voted it in, so now we gotta deal with it. So how do we deal with it? But we just don't know the answer to some of these questions that we have right now. And I don't know, you say you talked to Senator, we need some solid answers, then we need as a board to figure out what the heck we're gonna do. I don't wanna lose control, I mean, if we have to have it, I prefer that we do it on our own terms and we have
That's what I just
control.
said, I absolutely agree that you gotta keep control, and I'm not so sure exactly at this particular point how we best do that, that's why I'm trying to find those answers. I don't think there's any benefit to this township, none, zero.
When we were originally looking at the medical marijuana, and I went to different meetings and stuff, and then I brought the people that were in the meetings. We had the board members come, the very stuff that I heard, board members 3 at a time would hear these presentations, and we had a couple of people come in that were just all for the wrong reasons, but I mean legitimate people in the business aspect. And again, they talk about the medical benefits. Scott doesn't know, I'm not an MD, but I do know that the medical, I got a buddy, okay, good friend of mine, he did 2 tours in Vietnam, he breathed a whole bunch of Agent Orange. 3 times they told him to go home and get your Sierra together, you're dead. And he signed off and became a human guinea pig, he's alive to this day. So they did something with him that they don't allow in the medical industry, it's not legal or whatever it is. He looks better now than he did 10 years ago, you know what I'm saying? But it just, the bottom line is, there could be some medical benefit to it. I don't know, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a druggist, I'm not a chemist, I don't know that stuff. But again, like I said all along, they're growing dope in Waterford Township, they're selling dope in Waterford Township, pot. And they're consuming it in Waterford Township right now, illegally, okay? So, again, and if we do approve it and we do allow a grow operation or a dispensary or transport, whatever it is, we know who those people are, that much we know. And if anybody else is doing it, we know it's illegal. But are they gonna change the rules and regulations where you're gonna have 6 plants per people and up to 6 people or whatever it is, or up to 12 people, I mean, they aren't gonna change out. Why enact anything? Because you can just still do it helter-skelter. I got a call today with the guy in the neighborhood over there in the subdivision off Cooley Lake Road. And the neighbors, he's amped up the grow operation now. And he doesn't have a carbon filter and he can smell the crap and it reeks and, you know, he had his house up for sale before and people go by, they'd smell it, they didn't want to buy the house. That's what he said, you know, so he took it off the market. So he still lives there and it just, you know, but it just, he said, if we do something, can we put in the ordinance, you know, carbon filters or a filtration system or whatever? I don't know. I don't know what we can do as far as state law. Federal law, we know there is no federal law because it's illegal, but as far as state law, is there anything that we can enact? Like say rules and regulations that we can enact and enforce? Without state law superseding us or saying we're too tough on the people? Again, that I don't know. That would be something to talk to
I know
legal.
Pontiac was applying for an onslaught of applications. With the idea that the sheriff's office and the fire department and planning, everybody sit down at a table and figure this out. But the concern I have about the way they're talking about operating is you start hand picking who you want, and now where does it go?
That's
So,
the
you know,
that's the
so-
political end of it. right
Yeah,
there.
so that's the political side of things, so that's one of the concerns I have is.
You know, if it's 20 in Pontiac or if it's 1 in Waterford, neither one of those places is gonna eliminate the black market. It's gonna
Correct.
thrive and it's.
There was an article that Sue just distributed to most of us, and it did say that the black market is alive and well. And in California, actually, the legal sales have declined. Did you see that? I think that was the article that you were talking about, Art. And the sales, the legal sales have declined, and everybody's going back to the black market.
Why? Cheaper?
I don't
It's
know.
no
They-
tax, so it's probably
they feel
cheaper.
Yeah, it's always
comfortable,
cheaper.
maybe it's less expensive, I don't know why, it did not say.
Well, if you license
Because
it,
because if you can only get
sales
20
went down.
licenses, you're not, that doesn't mean that the other 480 people that are growing dope and selling it are gonna stop doing it because they didn't get one of the 20 licenses.
Well, true.
Again, like I said, they started the lottery. We got a 3 and 4 digit. Street numbers didn't go away. Illegal betting on football games did not go away. During Prohibition, what about during Prohibition? Alcohol was illegal, really.
States like Oregon, Alaska, Colorado that have all legalized this stuff, they've also found that there's this huge overproduction. Colorado alone
Yes,
produces
California.
more than 70% of the weed that they produce in Colorado
Goes
is
out
bound
state.
for other states.
Yep.
70%.
Coming
Is
east.
it 70%? I knew it was more than half. 70%.
So maybe we could have an export tax.
And like they said,
that's better than.
the
an
number
import.
one cash crop in the United States is illegally grown marijuana. That was prior to, you know, any of the states that done it, was marijuana, because like I said, a bushel of weed sells for a lot more than a bushel of corn, or beans, or potatoes, or radishes, or onions, you know what I'm saying, so. But it was the number one cash crop in the United States, and they were, and the federal government was seizing 3 to 5% of it, that was it. That was it, 3 to 5%. And those were probably big, when they hit them, probably big hits. That wasn't somebody with a dime bag or something, you know, an OZ. That was, you know, somebody with hundreds and hundreds of pounds or even tons.
That's when you see the big pictures on TV with the stacks and the money. and
Oh,
all that.
it's unbelievable.
Hells.
Yeah, they talk about the stacks of money,
Which is
support
a-
trucks to load
Which
it
is a small
airplanes and
portion
fly
of
it out
what's
of the
really
country.
going on.
Because again, it's illegal and you can't put it in an FDIC, you know, institution. You can't put it in there.
Well, until they fine tune the legislation comprehensively, we have, like you were just explaining, dispensaries and commercial grow operations, and the licenses that go along with it, like what they're doing in Pontiac. But that doesn't control the caregivers that are growing in the single-family neighborhoods that are licensed through the state as, for individual, how many plants per patient?
72.
Yeah, so that seems to be the main
12 for each
problem.
patient and 12 for themselves, up to 72 plants.
You got these residential areas that are going wild, how do we control that with our ordinances and rules and regulations? That's sort of out of our hands. We're dealing with the legislations that just dealing with dispensaries and larger scale commercial grow operations and in what zoning they would be allowed. And we won't have any power to regulate those caregivers in these residential neighborhoods until the state gets their mind around the whole thing comprehensively and the problems that it's with real estate. How do you sell your house when there's a commercial grow operation going, or a caregiver growing X number of plants right next door to you? And it's just becoming a negative for your
A
neighborhoods.
good example of that, Larry, is the old Pine Store Voorhees that caught fire. You
Yeah.
were familiar with it.
Electrical output that these are
There's too much
taxing.
electricity, but there's no inspection of it in residential homes and stuff, you know,
Right.
it's crazy. You know, who knows how much juice is going through that, I wouldn't want nobody to do it next door to me, you know?
Well, according to the MRTMA in 2018, it said the law will generally allow anyone over 21 to possess, use, consume up to 2.5 ounces of marijuana. And then it says possess, store, process for personal use up to 10 ounces of marijuana and up to 12 plants in one's home.
That's a lot.
It is a lot, it is a lot.
I don't know what they're thinking of in Lansing, I mean, my God, these guys are.
One
they
person
weren't
can
thinking.
Yeah, they
physically.
weren't thinking, you know, they get paid,
They weren't
lobbyists
just that
for.
much.
Well, that's just like
It's
saying,
horrible.
okay, we're gonna put speed limits on the roads, and then 5 years down the road, you put the signs out, but the police are writing people tickets for speeding. How?
Right.
You don't have any signs telling them how fast they can drive, you know what I'm saying? They
Yeah.
say, we're gonna do it, and then everybody does it, and then they follow up on it, and they
This
get
hasn't been
their.
a comprehensive approach to every little
So
layer.
we need to first understand, I think, we need to first understand what are our legal options, right? As far as what can we do or what can't we do? And what does it mean if we did opt out or not?
I think opt-out is the biggest question at this point.
Right,
What's-
I think
what-
so too.
Yeah, I think
But-
what are the choices for the other side if the township decides to opt out? That's the
But what
biggest
we are hearing, just so you know, is that they can come back and it only takes 5% of our
Well,
voters.
that's what it says, but I'm not, I mean, it's not very well written.
Okay.
And in this particular part of the statute does not really explain, I mean, it says, word for word, may completely prohibit or limit the number of marijuana establishments within the boundaries, period. So, and then follows up with this 5%, so I don't know how those are both connected. I'm not so sure how that works, which is what we need the explanation to.
The one concern is though that they have the votes, right? 67% of the people said they're for it. I gotta tell you, the majority of people that I know are for it. So, I think, you know, that 5% does come into play. That's a.
Well, like,
that's-
it's-
that's
yeah, that-
Almost
We have to-
countable, that's nothing, that's nothing.
We have to do
Those are
something
petitions
if
signed by
that does
five.
come
Yeah,
into
that's,
play.
that's,
Circulating petitions to put it up.
But the
That's
companies,
nothing.
the companies would get that in a heartbeat.
yeah, they'll go door to door.
Yeah,
They have unlimited
So
resources.
we would
That's
have
what
to
they
do
did to get it
something
on the
to
ballot.
make
Exactly.
it right.
The cannabis people.
So we're all thinking the same.
That's why I'm not quite sure, I mean, that being the case, then if that's true, and if that's exactly what that means, then the first sentence is completely void. I mean, sure, it's,
Why is it in there?
It's all up for an attorney.
Well, I think it's
That's
this,
opinion.
but
That's why they
this
think
can
so.
happen.
it doesn't say
I
that.
don't think Michigan,
That's
the
my
state of
point.
Michigan is even
Right.
actually.
But that might be completely rewritten in another month, that whole thing might be
You're
rewritten.
absolutely right.
We didn't know they
Because
changed
it's
it.
still up in the air as to what Michigan is going to say, and my understanding we'll get more direction sometime in June.
Does anybody know who wrote
December
the
deadline?
bill?
Who sponsored it? I don't
Who wrote the
know.
legislation?
And I'll find out.
I'm sure it's a
I'll
Democrat
go to
man
Cannabis
ever or
people wrote
something.
it. That's my guess, yeah, but I wanna know
Well,
that
that was the
correct.
hashtag.
Put it out there. The worst part of this is they put it in the Constitution. It's in the Constitution of the state.
Right.
It's not just a law, it's in the Constitution. How did the legislatures think, I don't know how this even happened.
The other thing I was telling Larry and Tony is that they're selling CBD oil. Drove by the family movies.
Video.
So, CBD gummies for sale.
Yep.
I mean, why is there any ordinance on that?
No THC.
Right, CBD is supposedly the
THC is a
Is
regulated.
that what the?
Yeah, it's a
Right.
There's two things that come off the plants, right? Well,
THC is
one
the
comes
base.
off the male plant, one comes off the female plant, right? That's all that is.
No more than all I know is THC is the regulated.
Depends on the plant as to what quantity of use you're in that plant. It's
Yeah.
plant specific, the
The problem is
percentages.
with the illegal growers, they're gonna put whatever they want in that plant. And it's not just gonna be THC, it could be anything.
Well,
Whereas
this
it's
is-
controlled
listen,
in
it's
a
not,
licensed facility, it can only have
so
certain.
Kim said, this is not the marijuana of the sixties. I mean, this is,
It's 10 times
it's a whole,
stronger.
it's a whole other ball.
I went to the court, the night of the court last week, and there was a gentleman there that gave quite a bit of information about drugs and things, and he said the marijuana is 10 times stronger.
Compared to the sixties, you're right.
Yes,
All right.
10 times stronger. It's not the same anymore.
The medical side of it's gonna be run very similar to a drug company
Right,
making
right.
medicine, very clean, very neat, very organized, very specific. My concern is
Recreational.
the person in their house or in the apartment
But
complex
it's-
or whatever.
But
is
they're-
doing
but
it.
they're
But it's
going to
already,
medical. They're
but it's
going to
not
medical now.
already, but the medical is already not, I mean, we've been down this medical road for how many years now, the first time around?
2008 it came
Right,
out.
and then the second time around, and now recreational, the medical is still a mess. Like I said, you know, you got a guy growing marijuana in his house that's the caregiver that's given, and they all talk in terms of patients and medication. Okay, so they've got 5 patients and they're providing medication to these 5 patients, and the medical establishment is not part of that. I don't, and how long's it been now? I don't see them, I don't see them being part of it anytime in the near future. There are doctors out, listen, my mom was diagnosed recently with epilepsy at 80 years old. And, so, you know, she went to the neurologist and they put her on some anti-seizure medication, which has been working great. But, you know, the neurologist she talked to, you know, he said, I'm not opposed to, you know, the marijuana experiment with people that have epilepsy. I have a friend of mine who was diagnosed when he was 17, he uses it. And I've asked him, do you notice any difference in the seizures? I mean, he can't say for certain. Well, I think they might be a little less than what they used to be. I mean, he can't say for certain. So I don't see the medical establishment getting on anytime soon.
I think if there was a very big medical benefit for this, the feds would have jumped in a long time ago because of the money. You know, make that legal.
I mean, the cannabis people will show you, I have a pinwheel picture that shows, you know, the cannabis people will tell you that in some way, shape, or form, marijuana could affect all these things, and it's everything from, you know, anxiety and back pain to cancer, and, you know, I don't know. Like I said, I'm not a medical person, but I find it hard to believe that it does help or is good for all those things, and the medical establishment isn't on board. There's been no research, there's no, I don't know.
And again, you look at stuff, they treat cancer with radiation. Radiation causes cancer. So are you fertilizing round 2 of the cancer that you're treating the person? Again, I don't know. To me, it doesn't seem, you know, geez, radiation, you're treating a person with cancer with radiation, but radiation causes cancer, so.
I can tell you one
again,
thing.
it just,
I can tell you that every addict that I've ever worked with as an informant, arrested, been around, just about every one of them started out smoking dope. Now, I'm not saying everybody that starts smoking dope becomes an addict, but I'm saying that pretty much every addict that I've ever come in contact with started out smoking dope. And I just don't see any benefit to this community. To put signs up on the streets and open these places, and you know, I was in Canada recently and I was in downtown Toronto, and everybody I walked by was smoking weed. Everybody. They're standing out in front of buildings. They're standing out in front of buildings like people stand out here and smoke cigarettes, and they're smoking
you
weed.
didn't pick up a contact buzz, did you?
I don't know, I might have, every single one of them. man.
But what about the children that are just around?
That's, yeah, that's
Right?
But again, it just becomes a way of life after a while. It just becomes, I mean, typically the gateway to alcohol is beer, you know what I'm saying? I've never tasted beer in my life, but I used to drink, you know what I'm saying? So it's not everybody, just like, you know, I got some buddies that had bad drug problems, and I'll tell you what, I'll guarantee you, they never smoked a joint in their life. They they hated cigarette smoke, any kind of smoke, and I know for a fact they never tried smoking weed. So again, those are isolated cases, but
Well, sure, I'm sure there's a lot of those
gateway,
stories. but-
gateway to the drug world is typically smoking weed, that's where you get.
People will
introduced.
disagree with me, people on the other side will disagree with me all day long, but, and that's their prerogative, but I don't buy it.
I think they're selling, what they're selling is a treatment for the symptoms of the disease.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, it just makes you feel different. That's what they're, that's the medical benefit.
I guess if you're high all the time,
Yeah.
you don't know that you're in a.
There you go.
As much pain as you used to.
Yep.
But they'll do the same thing with prescription drugs.
Yeah.
Like-
Yeah, right, oh, yeah.
So that's why we have an opiate problem in this
Yep.
country, because you said this, well, you know, took one, it didn't work, you took two, you took three, now you're in the ozone, yeah. You hurt what? What are you talking about, you know, so just, again, it's just, anything's possible, but
As soon as I get my answers here, I will let you all know.
Do you need anything else from us, or?
Will you email us, Scott, individually, or?
Yeah.
no, he can forward all of us, he can inform us, we
Yeah,
can
he-
inform each
yeah,
other,
he
he
can
can inform
inform.
all of us with a single email, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we can't communicate back and forth. If we respond to Scott Underwood, you respond individually and don't CC anybody else on it.
Right.
You're talking to Scott.
Or I'll come talk to you in person.
You know where I'm at?
It's easy to do like I do, call him on the phone.
Yeah.
I dial quicker than I type. So,
Yeah, I appreciate any information that you
Yep.
can help us with, because this is a real
well,
sticky.
December 5th is gonna be here.
Before
Very
you know
soon.
it.
Yeah.
Before you
You know.
know it. And so, having said that, I mean, this says that the Medical Marijuana Facilities Licensing Act, so I'm thinking it's medical still though, it grants power to opt in. This was just recently, I went to a Capitol conference in February 27, 2019. It says it grants power to the municipality to regulate, opt-in. Municipality has to affirmatively adopt an ordinance to allow medical marijuana facilities. So we have to, or if we don't, I don't know
That's.
if they can get back on,
No,
but
that's the most recent medical law that was passed, so it's either enact an ordinance and set the restrictions, or do nothing, and if you do nothing and don't enact an ordinance, then they're dead in the water, they can't do business in your town or city.
it says.
The other one's the opposite.
It says municipality may choose to not allow any facilities or may choose to allow one or more types.
Right. You can do nothing, or you can opt in by enacting an ordinance, and if you do that, then you can restrict,
What you want done here.
then you can, right.
Out of the five, you can pick one, two.
You can
three, or five.
dictate what you wanna do with regard to those establishments.
That's the medical side though?
That's the
Yeah.
medical.
This
side.
is medical, I believe, yes. It's
I don't
the-
think they've got anything spelled out on the recreational, do they?
No.
The recreationally, but that's the opposite. You either opt out or you're in.
Or you're in, yes.
That's the opposite, so, okay.
It's very confusing.
It is very confusing.
It really is.
But then if we were to do anything with this, then it poses a lot of other concerns such as, you know, noise, nuisance, police problems,
Smell.
smell, then you have to determine if you allow one facility, or how do you determine who gets it? Is it a lottery? Is it a first come, first serve? There's lots of more issues with
Creates
doing
way more
that.
issues than it solves, that's for sure.
That's where I think what Ponic issue was talking about, they have this 20 number, they're gonna have 100 applicants.
Yes.
And a group of people are gonna sit down and try to determine who's the best out of them.
And then we,
Now
and
it's
then we,
instant lawsuit.
right, and then the 80 that don't get picked, they're file suit.
Plus,
They have-
but
they have all in their pockets.
You're gonna have some people come at you to apply, they'll already have to be approved for license too, you're gonna have that.
Yeah.
Where, so if you had two people apply, one already has a license and one hasn't even applied, so what are you gonna do? Take the person that has a license or been approved by the state to have a license, cause they can set up operation, where you're gonna wait for the other person to go through whatever process there is, and then they get denied, and you're still sitting there with that, I mean, there's different ways of looking at it.
It's like a fire.
Here's a question for you, you know, you had the liquor licenses that are transferable. Are those gonna be transferable at some point? Could somebody from Pontiac say, well, Waterford's opted in, I know they only have one license, but I have my license in Pontiac, can I move it over here?
That's a great question, and it'll probably change next week. You know?
Yeah.
It's a very good
I don't-
question.
I don't think that's the case. I think you have to be licensed by the state and then licensed by that municipality.
Right.
So your state license doesn't necessarily grant you
That's a good
permission to do business in any municipality. You've got to be
Is
licensed
this
by
spelled
that.
out
Is it
anywhere?
municipal license $5,000, that's the ceiling?
Up to $5,000.
Up to $5,000, that's.
And most places are doing the inspection process similar to what we do for like the transient merchant license and all those other licenses that we do, kind of the annual re-up of the licensures.
Is it spelled out anywhere where individual can have a medical marijuana license and a recreational marijuana license in the same facility?
They don't need a license at all.
It's not.
So somebody legally, right now, the way we think, it could happen. You could have a store and sell medical on one side and recreational on the other.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Be like your party store.
One-stop shop.
It's quite a
Beer
party.
in the middle.
Once again, my biggest thing is, when I look at all this stuff, I say, what's the benefit to us as a community? I don't see it.
Well,
In the beginning, people thought there was gonna be this big windfall of money.
That's how they
There's
pushed it.
There's just not, it's just not
They
gonna
pushed
happen.
it. And you have to look at it, like I said, it's just, you know, again, how many people is it gonna tie up with fire and doing it just inspections alone? I'm saying you guys would be tied up on that.
Nonstop.
And can you charge that? If you can't, then again, like I said, it's a negative number right out of the chute. And every time the police have to go there, I mean, you gotta do inspections, you gotta do inspections, you gotta go in and make sure they're running a legitimate operation. You do, you know?
Yeah, it's gonna be a tax on all services.
And then if there's a
Yes.
B&E or an armed robbery or a shooting or a fire or whatever, then immediately our first responders have to respond to it.
They're talking about, they want to lower the insurance rates in Michigan. Colorado, when they passed the recreational marijuana, their auto insurance went through the roof.
They're arguing now about how to set the limit for driving. How much THC can be in somebody's system and still be able to operate a car without being impaired. You know, like right now, there's a hard and fast 0.08 alcohol, and we know, we lock somebody up, you know, first off, you know, we stop them for whatever the erratic driving is, we observe, and we lock them up, and then there's a breath test, which tells us, right? With the marijuana, they put together a commission, and the commission has come back and said, we don't think you should set any limit. We think that, you know, those arrests should be based on observations of driving and their appearance and their demeanor, and that should be it, there shouldn't be any limit. Well, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
What do you back it up with?
Completely
Exactly.
Yeah.
So any defense attorney goes in and says, you know, why'd you arrest my guy? Well, because this, that, and the other thing. Well, how much did they have in their system? Well, we don't know. Well, what's the limit? Well, there isn't any. So it's a
Case
mess.
dismissed.
It's an absolute mess.
Yeah.
And then there's the question of, I mean, even if you do set, like some different states have set it at different rates, like anywhere from 2 nanograms to 5 nanograms. And so then there's the question of, well, if I'm 4 nanograms of THC, yet I'm 0.06 of alcohol, I haven't reached either limit, but there's this combination,
Both in
so,
your system.
so what's the combination? I mean, nobody knows. I mean, there's all kinds of issues and problems.
Well, the other thing we're gonna have to face too is smoking pot at the workplace, and what about schools? Kids go out on the playground and.
Or you're gonna be a certain age to do it, you're not gonna get.
Well, you wanna-
Well, it's anything over, anybody, it's over
Recreation.
21 now.
Right.
And
But on school property, it's prohibited.
Right.
You're at the
It is
playground, you're on
It is.
school property, you violated the
It's
law.
prohibited.
I don't care if you're 45 years old, you can't smoke dope on school property. You
Well,
can't.
it's the
Well, now
same
you
thing-
can't
same
smoke,
thing with
we've just
vaping.
adopted, you know, with the most
Vaping,
recent,
so-
with the most recent amendment to the ordinance was in terms of smoking and now vaping.
Right.
We've adopted with the Clean Indoor Act, so they can't do it in schools, and now the most recent amendment says they can't do it on school grounds. There are certain hour restrictions, like events from 6 to 9 or 6 to 10 at night with adults. I mean, that's a different story, but we've made that restriction now, so we're in good shape there.
My question is basically, what can we get away with, the very minimum, and not being dictated by the state?
We
what we
might
can
not,
do.
we'll have to wait.
And I am, that's why I
We have
said,
to
my
wait.
question is, you know, when you get an answer, because we really don't wanna get the, I understand your point, we've talked about this for the last couple of years, even when we went and visited that one facility, and I sort of wasn't with you on it, and sometimes I'm not on it, but then I see that, you know, I hear the people in the industry, well, you know what, we'll do this for you, we're gonna do that for you. I think, well, as a board member, you know, the benefits of it, but then I gotta look at it, taxing our first responders, our inspectors, it's just gonna cause us a lot of problems. So the question you always ask is, what's the benefit for the township? Really, probably zero. Or if not
Also,
negative.
companies, as Steve had mentioned, there is companies having problems getting drug-free tests back to employ people, and they are having problems getting employers.
I know
or
police
employees.
departments back in the eighties that multiple people failed their drug tests applying for a police position, so that's gone on for a long
For a
time.
long
This isn't
time.
just
But
something.
the
that
trace of
started.
marijuana.
But in Colorado and
In your
Denver?
system for 30 days.
No, but you know what, here's the other
does.
thing too,
And in Denver, I know that General Motors had problems getting employees.
so we're a society of laws, and 85 or 90% of the people do the right thing just merely because it's against the law to do otherwise. So now that you open this door, there are plenty of people that may previously have not tried this stuff that will, you know, so
True.
Sure.
the
It's a
effect will be
snowball. It's a
exponential.
snowball.
Yeah.
And again, it's legal now, I can do it.
But you
There's
look
nothing
at
wrong
that,
with it.
look at the construction industry. There'd have been a bunch of 1- and 2-man carpenter crews up there if you didn't hire people to smoke dope. It's just, not on the job, not during work, but I'm just saying, it's just, there's people from all walks of life. And your construction people have a tendency to live a little bit harder.
Mhm.
You know, and again, like I said, it's just, and you probably know police officers who lost their job because they tested positive for illegal drug use, you know what I'm saying? Just, yeah, I got a buddy hired in Pontiac, 5 guys ahead of him. The only reason he got hired, they were hiring one person, 5 guys ahead of him, all 5 of them failed the drug test, that's how he got the job, you know what I'm saying? Just, a lot of years ago, that's back in the 80s, but it does happen, you know, it does. And I said, it sticks with you a long time. And again, like I said, it talked about people now that it's legal, but okay, but it's illegal, but you can't bring a 6-pack into work and sit at your desk and drink it. You can't bring a bag of weed in, or pills, or gummies, or anything else legally and consume it, so it's still against the law, you know what I'm saying? But
Every group is a reflection of society, so every group has some of, you know, there are politicians sitting on every board and every council and up in Lansing that are smoking dope at home, you know what I mean?
yeah, but the President of the United States did not inhale.
Former
Which
president.
one, right?
A couple presidents ago.
So, you know,
He didn't inhale. He
cops,
didn't
doctors,
inhale.
lawyers, politicians, school teachers, you know.
Doctors.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's here, it's been here for God's sakes, you know, now the question for us is, what are we gonna do about it? How do we go about controlling it in our township?
Yeah, you said we gotta find out what the
Yeah.
ramifications are, and just, we said, do what we can do to protect ourselves and be able to control what we can control. And again, like I said, they did the recreational, now they did the medical, now they did recreational. What's coming on the ballot next? What are they gonna come up with next and put on the ballot? You know what I'm saying? You don't know.
Just makes you wonder, what the hell is going up in Lansing?
There's gonna be litigation ongoing, you know, cities and townships are gonna enact ordinances or not enact ordinances, are gonna take action or not take action, people are gonna file
Sue.
lawsuits.
Yeah.
There's,
should be nonsense.
yeah, there's a lot of questions to be answered that I don't have the answers to, and I don't think we can answer here tonight either.
But see, we wanna protect ourselves to minimize, like you said, be able to control and minimize the after effects of lawsuits and litigation, and just, you can't stop people. If people wanna sue you, they can sue you, you know what I'm saying? I don't like the color of your building, I'm suing you, you know what I'm saying? It can happen, they can sue you for anything, but at the same time, if we make sure we cover ourselves, we can limit whatever the outcome might
Yeah,
be.
we really need to start working on this getting on the ball with it, because December 6th coming real quick.
Possibly
you know
Scott
what I'm saying?
will get some more information
Right.
from the senator.
Yep, as soon as I hear,
And then-
as soon as I hear back, I'll let you know.
Appreciate that.
Okay?
Dead silence.
Any other thoughts about marijuana or any other topics?
10 times as potent as it used to be, eh? That's
Yes,
what it is, I don't know.
yes, 10 times stronger.
Full of chemicals, yes,
Mhm.
they're growing.
What do they use, Miracle Grow? How do they grow this stuff?
They're
Make it so
growing
much-
it hydroponics. basically, growing it in
Crossbreed,
water
different
that's full of-
strains, they got, I mean,
Yeah.
these people that are into it, I mean, they got,
Unreal.
yeah, it's.
What, like seeds, is that the
Yeah,
strain? Is
yeah,
that what
there's
it
a
means?
whole science to,
Well, it's like you said, it's, like you said, the farmers out in Iowa, sometimes you get up to 220 bushels of corn per acre.
Yeah.
I can remember when 115, 120, when we first started going out there, they crossbred stuff and, you know, and got, you know, just, they got the best of the best. Soil conditions, you know what I'm saying,
Yeah.
no-till farming,
yeah.
you know, it just, there's all kinds of different things in
Yeah.
this, but it's the same, I mean, the same way with the marijuana industry too. It's-
I think I read, I think from Sue's, something about they can even do internet sales possibly,
Oh, yeah.
so.
You can buy CBD oil on the internet now. You can buy it for your
So
dog.
that's, you're
Yeah,
not gonna be
right.
able to
Yeah,
monitor
so-
that.
You know, whenever the industry comes out with its big money, there's a lot of crooked stuff that goes out,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know. This is some real serious.
Anytime
money.
you interject money, that's just
Big
all,
money
you
like
got
this,
everybody's
yeah.
attention. Federal green, everybody's favorite color.
I mean, you wonder what they're doing up in Lansing to even throw this at us, there's so many loopholes in it. You know, just doing black and white, say this is the way it is, not
Right.
you're guessing what it, you know.
Not to mention our federal government.
Fix the road.
Well, the federal government saying no, they,
Right.
yeah, they
Right.
understand. But, you know, I don't know what they're doing up in Lansing, there's, some of the stuff here is just,
Bless you.
I don't even think lawyers can understand half of it.
Right.
Concern,
You know, one paragraph says
There's
one
lots of
thing, and then the
concerns.
following one's completely different.
Yep.
How you gonna let a judge decide which one's right?
Why doesn't the federal law overrule the states?
It does.
It does.
It does.
They don't enforce it.
That's the problem.
right.
Well, let me see.
We can't
How
enforce
many
the
states
federal
you got
law,
in
the
the United
federal
States,
law
how many
enforcement
operations you got,
enforcement.
and how many federal agents you have?
Well, that's the same thing.
Just like for
How many
every-
ordinance officers do we have?
Like, just like every police officer pulls somebody over for speeding, there's probably another 100 that didn't get pulled over. I mean, it's just the way it is. That's-
Let's not pick on the speeders, let's pick on the people that drive too slow.
They're worse.
I know.
Yeah, they start road rage.
They're worse.
Yeah, they do.
The slow drivers are?
It's a friend of mine who lives out of state, affectionately refers to them as the Michigan rough laners.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
He lives down in one of the Carolinas, says, they don't drive like that down in the Carolinas, you get run right off the road, but the old lovely Michigan left laners, there they are. Get right next to two cars and drive the same speed limit, 10 under.
We do that on 59 at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Dixie Highway, Telegraph, Elizabeth Lake Road,
Yeah.
Williams Lake Road, Walton Boulevard, just, you get it, they just.
Well, you got a little siren flasher in your car, you just hit that switch
Mm-hmm.
and, whoa,
Who is?
So while we have you here, are there any other pressing issues in your department that
No, we're clipping along just fine.
you're working on?
Everything's safe, everything's,
That Kratom, I think,
Kratom, yeah.
Kratom,
Yeah.
that's,
another federal issue. I mean,
yeah.
what's that?
It's a plant-based substance that they sell in these vape shops that people use in these vape devices, and it's regulated by the FDA for sale under 18, but the FDA doesn't do any enforcement. So, once again, it's another federal law that's.
It can cause
that's-
hallucinations,
that's-
I believe.
Yeah, it causes all kinds of problems.
Mhm.
And, you know,
And
they're
it's
supposed to be.
sold over the counter.
Right.
Well, like we had that issue with K2, was
Yeah,
K2,
K2,
yeah, for a long
Party
time.
stores are selling that.
Same kind of thing, and until
Yeah.
somebody gets on board and enacts something against this Kratom stuff, it'll still be out there.
The next thing from the next one.
Since 5:32, you can.
Yep. Other than that, we're just waiting for the Board of Appeals decision so we can hire some more police officers.
Did you get your cars yet?
They're on order.
Good.
Good.
We
Anything
have
with-
everybody in line for the hire, I mean, have you done interviews and done everything, just?
We do, we have an existing list, and as soon as, we have one person left from the previous list that we have to exhaust before we can certify the next one. And so we have people on that list that I've already been in touch with and explained to them the situation. So we'll see. Hopefully they don't have jobs before we get to them.
Any, hear anything on the Court of Appeals case?
not.
What it's gonna go in front of them?
The motions and stuff have been filed.
Have not.
Yeah, but I'm under notice. I heard you guys, they found a couple extra soft spots over in your lot there.
Oh, is that right?
For the paving.
You know. But a couple of the other ones they thought were bad aren't, so they hope it's a wash, so.
Yeah, that was in pretty rough shape.
Yeah, they got it all milled yesterday, didn't they?
Sunday they start, yes.
Yeah, they got it all milled yesterday.
Trying to days.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Was the first nice day we've had since probably the third week of September last year. I mean, geez, I mean, the days off the charts out there,
They got-
75.
They got stuff,
Today was?
up off of there pretty quick.
I brought it back with me.
Yeah, thank you, Margaret. How about you, John, since you're here, anything pressing in your department?
No, we got a truck ordered, we got a rescue that should be done probably the first week of May.
That's a remount, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. I may be retiring at some point here by summer, possibly.
So you think about not retiring then?
No, I'm saying I
I
probably
said
will
you
be
may be
retiring.
retiring.
He said maybe, possibly.
Maybe, possibly. It's all up in the air.
Okay.
This is up in the air as this law.
I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah, D-Wall was asking about the other day, so I was coming, call him up and find out.
You'll see our guys on the road a lot more this time of year, just the weather's warm, training season kind of kicks up a little bit more, so you'll see them doing a lot more stuff outside the buildings and a lot more activities.
Yeah, we used all of our PFAS foam out there. If you see this, I'm just kidding. We did some foam training out there and we used dish soap. So it gets the same kind of effect for training and stuff.
You coming to meeting tonight?
No, I will not be there tonight.
You want-
I'm going to the cross game.
Riverwalk cleanup
sounds like
day.
fun.
Not that Matt, no, he's a big
Oh,
Riverwalk cleanup.
Riverwalk, May 11th.
May
As long
11th.
as there's no bees.
9 to 12.
Yeah.
See a guy in his underwear running down
Yeah.
59 again.
You'll let you get down in the lower part there, she being flushing, you know?
Oh, man.
It was a nightmare.
That was classic there.
Who was standing there? It's just-
Oh,
She
jeez.
goes,
Sue.
woo,
No,
do that again.
No.
Stuff like that. I'm like,
no,
That wasn't Sue?
no. they-
Oh, it was.
I
She's
know I
over
was
at
there.
the spaghetti dinners.
Oh,
She said,
she's
"Wait,
so
I can
funny.
see her, I can see her face.
Way
Oh, it was
before, I said,
classic.
do that again. No, I'm not getting bit by bees and running down the road in my underwear.
You can't.
It was right at
It just
59
happened.
too.
Oh, yeah.
It just happens.
It just happens, right, it just happens.
He got into the yellow jacket.
Oh, right up my shorts.
Oh, yeah, the yellow jacket.
It was horrible.
Well, that's where the underwear comes in, you take your pants off.
He had to.
Okay, I'm trying to figure out where the underwear is coming in.
Yellow jackets.
Oh, she went, oh,
Someone had a
my.
camera, he said. Someone had a camera that worth $1 million.
She went,
Yeah.
oh, my.
You could have entered that.
I don't want
under
to do it.
$10,000.
No, it'd been one of the funniest videos I've
Maybe
watched.
100, maybe 100.
Oh, that would have gone viral.
Yeah, it was one of the funniest home
Yeah, I know,
videos.
yeah.
Water prepared, deputy chief.
It's so small, it can cause so much pain in such a short period of time.
Oh, it's like, I tell you, you can, what it reminds me of is I've been burned with cigarette, it's like somebody taking a cigarette, butt and putting it on, and they, I mean, those
Oh,
little
my
things burn.
gosh.
They're yellow jackets, they're mean
They
too.
don't stop.
And,
How many times do you stun?
A lot.
Really?
yeah, probably 5 or 6, didn't you?
Just stand there, there's a lot of them in my shorts.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, boy.
Don't wear shorts
Oh,
or walk clean up, you'll be seeing me, I'll be wearing one of those pieces.
Long pants and duct tape on the ankles.
Breathing apparatus and
Yeah, I think I'll do that. Church.
Duct tape on the ankles.
Yeah.
Well, lousy duct tape them around the sleeves
Middle of the
too.
lake.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
Anybody else? Larry,
Sorry,
do
I
you
was
have
late.
anything for us with planning
Sure.
or? Sure.
Yeah, you may want to know about this, we're a one-stop ready community, but as you heard, and I talked to Tony about this before, with MDOT, say, for example, the Tel Huron site there, Telegraph in West Huron, the old Harwood's Uniform Supply Tire Retail Center. So we had a developer come forward and want to take out some of the buildings that are there, maybe up to 1/3 of the buildings, and create more parking. Well, our ordinance requires that for any change of use, we submit the plans to the Michigan Department of Transportation for review. Well, they wanted tens of thousands of dollars in road improvements, and we were providing more off-street parking for that tired center, trying to get tenants in there, a certain tenant mix. So now MDOT's recently contacted our office last week, and they are emphatic that for any change of use, a tenant change or tenant, we should send plans to them for consolidation of access drives and curb cuts, which in many ways can work to be a good thing, but in sometimes it can be problematic, and businesses will be calling you, complaining about why are they making me do this? I just want to lease out my space to another retail user, or another type of use that's permitted under your ordinance, but now you've sent my plans to MDOT, and MDOT wants me to close one of my driveways and consolidate my two approaches. So it's a big headache that we're struggling to be one-stop ready, and when you want to get a shovel in the ground, when you want to get going, but you've got other agencies that aren't on
I
that.
say
same
bring
class.
Andrew Schroeder over here and our senator and say, this is the blight we have.
Yes.
And one of your agencies, one of your inept agencies, one of the other inept agencies. I can't stand MDHHS. This is one of your inept agencies that's leading this, just like this, and it's gonna stay like this as long as whoever's in power over there makes those decisions. So,
It's sort of a.
why do they care who's renting Harwood store?
No, their
I wouldn't
job,
change
MDOT
it.
wants to move traffic along on their major roadways. They want to keep traffic flowing and eliminate access
They
points.
do, why don't they pave the roads, and maybe, we could move some traffic along. You ever been on Walton Boulevard?
You're yelling at the wrong guy.
Yeah.
I know, I'm just,
But, I
We
guess
just all parked on the
US is-
sidewalk at Harwood.
MDOT does nothing for this community.
Yeah, they did, they sent me an email back in early January saying you're in violation of your township ordinance. That tree that had kind of uprooted and was bent out over Dixie Highway there, down between Silver Lake Road and Scott Lake Road. So I got a hold of one of the tree companies. So I finally got a hold of the guy at MDOT there, and I said, okay, I said, we're ready, before the weather breaks this spring, and said, we're ready to do it. And he goes, well, we'd like you to use our tree company. And I said, no, we're not using your tree company. We've got a tree company that's bid it, and they're gonna do it. We did, well, they need to apply for it. I said, well, just how about one governmental agency with another? In fact, our DPW already has MDOT permits when we have water main breaks and sewer breaks. Well, we gotta work in the right of ways there. Not that won't work.
I just say we already cut it down.
Right.
Sue us.
But they did approve it the same day they applied for it. The tree company got the permit.
Sorry, we didn't know that.
But it's just like it said, they sent me the email and then made it as difficult as could be to get the job done.
Seriously, take me your shoulder down there and the state senator, job. Is it Runstead?
No, Ruth Johnson.
Ruth, yeah.
Yeah, take Ruth Johnson down there. This is blight that your state agency wants to have happen. And in fact, they want this across all of them 59.
Sure.
So look at the problem with Tropical Smoothie, they had the same problem, didn't
Well,
they? So they fighting them on the, and that was an
We
existing
got
gas
Maddox
station
out
property,
there
they
too.
had
He's a west end of water.
two entrances to it, and they were fighting them on that, weren't they? on
Another good
Tropical Smoothie?
example of overregulation.
Tropical Smoothie, they were fighting them on
Yeah.
an
Oh.
existing
Yeah.
Yes, MDOT.
lot
did
that had two curb cuts already.
Yeah, it's a gas station, and all gas stations that
We
way.
consolidated down to one, and then they wanted right turn in, right turn out, and that would have lost the business. They would have had to vacate the site and move on, so finally they relented. But another good example of where MDOT stopped a project was Culver's. We had a corner site at North Oakland Boulevard and 59 with no access, right? So here's an outlot right on the corner. Culver's comes to us and says, we want to put up a restaurant there. Well, I said, number one, MDOT's not going to give you a curb cut that close to the intersection of 59 and North Oakland Boulevard. Well, will you work with us on utilizing cross-access through the bowling alley? And I said, yes, that's what we want. So I went ahead, took the plan to the planning commission without any proposed access. MDOT called me up, stopped the project, and said, we want other improvements out in the road right away. We left it up to them to enforce those improvements because it was their right of way, no access that I could control from planning onto private property. And they never got those improvements, and Culver's is operating fine there. There's no problems with traffic or accidents, or that I know of anyway, at that intersection that I've heard of.
They're holding up a
But-
project over there, Bob Evans too.
Yeah,
Bob Evans.
Bob Evans wanted.
Everybody wants a right of way, a curb cut there, can't get it.
Yeah. So anyway, if you get calls from that, there's two sides to every story. Certainly we want to work with these agencies where it's reasonable and practical, but sometimes they're really overbearing and it's not realistic. You know, when you think about a change of use, going from retail to retail or another permitted use in that same zoning district, okay, just close off, you know, I can see closing down 3 driveways to 1, but sometimes it's so cost prohibitive. The owners just throw up their hands and say, well, I can't afford to do the project if you're gonna make me do all this.
Well, and my concern is, we talked about this before with the redevelopment of Somerplace Mall, you know what I'm saying, wanting to move some of the entrances and exits in there and stuff, and I get a believe along Telegraph Road, MDOT Road, there's going to probably be some difficulty there too.
Oh, absolutely.
And there's a $100 million project, and we could have.
So we'll see what the first development comes in over there, what Ari proposes and how it impacts Telegraph, but we have to go
See
through
what they're
that.
saying, I'd go right to the state reps and
We
send
got a
them.
very good idea, John.
I'm
We should have
serious.
them come to a workshop, all 3 of them, or anybody that represents anything in Waterford.
If any of you
Sit
know
them at
Ruth
one of our
Johnson and want to
workshops.
invite her over here to see it, well, I'm happy to sit in on a meeting and tell her what we're up against. You know.
Her and Andrew are very approachable.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, they are,
They are.
phones like that,
They
it's
are.
pretty amazing.
We need to
Don't
get them here
get
all
back
at one
with you
time.
shortly.
Right.
Yeah, we need to get them all here one time and sit down with the full board and Larry and say, this is our problem here in this township.
Okay.
Anything else?
About 5:45.
Okay.
Everybody have a good Easter?
As a household.
Beautiful day.
Yeah,
Like I said, it's great weather, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, we've said, we've been daily, that's just
It's
like
18 pound.
beautiful.
See what you.
Thank you.
Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule, guys. Appreciate that.
Never too busy for you,
Okay. I'm gonna write that down.
Oh.
What's the date?
For a couple more
We're
minutes.
recording too. It's
Say
it's
call,
on the recording.
say call at 8 o'clock at night. No.
Yeah, Mark, send that statement over to me, would you? John just made there. I'll record of that.
No problem.
He didn't say Jerry, but everybody knows who she was.
Yeah.
Some would consume them.
Well,
It's going. It's going. I just love traffic.
everything.
Yeah, it was joy.
As you guys were just talking about.
I'm going
How
to
much
Eastern
fun it is.
Michigan 1 week out of every month for the next 10 months. And there is no good way to go to Eastern Michigan from this area.
There's no good way to go anywhere. I just came, it took me 55 minutes. I left work at 4 o'clock and it took me 55 minutes to get here. I work at Middle Belt in North Preston,
Wow.
15 miles from here. You want